we hit the alarm clock one too many times in the morning because we're just not super motivated. I call it learning to think with your heart. If I help one person, I feel so fulfilled.
Welcome back to Generation SOS on Record. Today I'm here with the lovely Melissa Butterworth. She is the CEO of Advanced Strategic Partners and the author of The Endgame and Clues. Today we'll be discussing Melissa's journey on how she became the boss babe she is today. We'll also be breaking down parts of her new book, Clues, that provides stories and exercises on how to find your purpose in life, using the clues shown to you in your own life and your own journey and experiences. We also talk about the power of positive thinking and the importance of gratitude. Thank you, Melissa, for coming on.
Thank you, Carmen. I'm so excited to be here. It's just such a pleasure to finally meet you.
Melissa, can you tell us where you're from, where you are right now in the world, and a little bit about you?
I've had an amazing life. I was actually born and raised on a farm. Went to college in North Florida, University of North Florida, and started my career in medical sales. Eventually fired from that job, which was a clue and a very pivotal turning point in my life. And from there, I started my company, Advanced Strategic Partners, and I've been doing this for 16 years. Then COVID hit, right? COVID hit, and I think like a lot of people, I started looking closer at my life, and I started thinking to myself, there's got to be more. I've got all of this wonderful success, and I've built a lot of wealth for myself. I just really felt like there's got to be something more to my life. And what I really uncovered about myself was that a part of my real purpose in life is, now that I've achieved such great success, is to help other women find their personal life purpose, help them identify what their God-given, why, what their purpose is, so that they too can live a long and fulfilled life. We reach a point in our life where either we feel like we're not living our purpose, maybe, we hit the alarm clock one too many times in the morning because we're just not super motivated when we get up. We feel like something has to change, right? We don't really feel like we're where we are supposed to be. And I start the book off talking about that. And I go into a story about when I was 9 years old, and it was pretty severe at the time, obviously, where my right arm was severed from my body. And years old and not really dealing with the emotions of it. It was a combination of my parents getting divorced when I was in high school. And that was like another what I call clue and recurring theme that was medical related in my life. And it was the universe's way of showing me that, wow, you're supposed to be in the medical field, and you're supposed to help people and make sure that, that they don't go through a lot of the scary times and anxious things that I went through as a patient. And so it shaped me into the person I am today. And I really believe that those bad experiences that happen to people are just the universe's way of showing you what your path is. It's like kind of like a personal GPS system, right?
Right. Can you summarize some simple steps on how to narrow down and recognize your life's purpose?
I have a lot of information about how to find your purpose, but I'm going to dumb it down for you. I'm going to dumb it down because we don't have a lot of time, and I'm going to try to make it simple. I think one, you have to set the intention that it's important to you to find your purpose, because 90% of people are walking around in this world with no purpose. And so the first thing you have to do is set an intention, right? You have to decide, I'm here for a reason. Like, I know that I was born for a very specific purpose, and I want to know what that purpose is. So you have to set the intention and be aware, because a lot of people are walking around clueless, and they don't even care, and they're not even aware. So that level of setting the intention and creating that level of awareness is number one. Number two is, what is it that you wake up every day and you really, really love to do? And what is it that you're really great at? Like, for me, what I had to ask myself was, okay, so if I'm great at connecting and I'm great at truly helping other people, what is it that I value? Like, that's like number three. What is it that I value in life and value as a person? And for me, it's providing value for other people. And if you kind of like do those three things, I think that'll get you like on the right road to like uncovering what you're meant to do. Like, what are your top two or three things that even if you didn't get paid, you would still want to do every day? Like for me, doing this, I could do this all day long with you and never get paid a dollar. And if I help one person, just impact one person, like I feel so fulfilled.
So in Clues, you talk about how once you identify the paths that you feel are aligned with your purpose, you're more aware and able to recognize the clues in your life. Can you explain that further?
In my book, I talk a lot about clues, and I give the reader some exercises to do, right? One of the exercises I have the reader do is I have them write out their top 50 events. I have them write these life events, and I have them put them in chronological order, like take yourself back. And for me, one of like the first events that I wrote down when I was doing this exercise was my memory of having my arm severed, right? That was like one of my life events. And have you go back through those events and ask yourself three questions. One, does this event mean anything to me personally? You know, does it have any significance? And if it doesn't, then you mark it off the list. If it does, you take it a step further and you say, okay, so why did this event have a significant meaning to me? And you dissect it a little bit further, and you dig down into it. And I call it learning to think with your heart versus thinking with our head. And so in the book, I also talk about several ways to get more in tune with your heart. What is my definition of clues? Well, when you go through and do that exercise, you are going to start looking at recurring themes in your own life, right? And so to me, recurring themes are definitely a clue that you need to pay attention to. It might be like, for me, it was recurring themes with the medical field, but for some people, it might be reoccurring themes with an individual, a specific individual that keeps popping up in their life, right? Like, have you ever thought about somebody and all of a sudden you run into them again? Once you identify like what your gifts are, what your purpose is, then when you're dissecting your clues, your 50 life events, you'll notice the ones that kind of like speak to you, that are maybe more in line with your purpose. Like for me, for example, like I kept having all these medical situations come up. And then this person comes into my life, Tony, and all of a sudden he's asking me if I, randomly, if I want to go on a ride day in the medical field with him. Well, that's kind of like a clue, right? It helps me be able to connect the dots because I had already decided I wanted to go into sales and I wanted to be able to like help people. I just wasn't really sure like what industry or how that was going to happen. Does that make sense?
No, that makes complete sense. Like I know what I'm kind of supposed to do. I'm kind of in that position right now, but yes, it's like I know what I want to do and what way, I just don't know what avenue is the best for me and for other people to receive that from me. I completely understand what you're saying, 100%. I read in your book how you became aware of the power of your subconscious mind. You also mentioned briefly earlier how you dealt with anxiety and it was absolutely crippling, controlled every aspect of your life. Can you talk about your experience with anxiety, when you started becoming aware of the power we all hold in our subconscious mind, and the importance of our thoughts? We think so many thoughts a day, and so many are negative. I'm sure this shifted so much for you and contributed to so much of your success and overall health and happiness. So let's get into it.
Oh yeah, Carmen, that is like huge. They say anywhere from 20 up to 50,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of those are negative. And then 95% of them are repetitive of the thoughts from the day before. And I call that remuneration, right? And that means you're repeating like the same negative stuff over and over and over, and there's themes to it, right? And so when I was going through severe, when I say it was debilitating anxiety, my mom gave me this book, and it was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is a classic book. And, and then The Power of Positive Thinking. And so I started like just diving into reading these books. Of course, I wasn't going out and partying in college because I had too much anxiety. I was like hanging out in the dorm or hanging out at home. And so I had like a lot of time on my hands, right? So I started reading the books, and one of the things that like clicked for me, it was like a light bulb going out, was when I was reading about the power of the subconscious mind and the thoughts that we're allowing to go into our subconscious mind. And what I realized about my own life was that I was spending a lot of time thinking about, like, when I had that accident, my arm was severed. I was spending a lot of time thinking about like my parents' divorce, and I need to lose 10 pounds. I'm not nearly as like beautiful as her. Oh my gosh, and body conscious, body image, right? That was huge for me. And to this day, it still is. Like I'm always body conscious. And so I had all these negative thoughts, like that I was feeding, like pretty much unaware that I was feeding into my subconscious mind, which was really, like you said, it was putting me on this like hamster wheel and this spiral like of despair, right? And so, step one is to become aware. Step two is to write down, what is it that you're saying to yourself? Are you calling yourself clumsy? Are you telling yourself that you're fat? Are you telling yourself that I'm not good enough? Write all of the things that you're saying to yourself. And for me, it was the body conscious thing over and over again. And so I replaced, as the next step, I kind of started replacing those negative thoughts with more positive, powerful thoughts. For example, I, Melissa, am healthy, I'm fit, I'm feeding myself with incredible nutrition. And so I come up with, these phrases that help eliminate the negative phrases that I'm entering into my mind. And every day, to this day, I still do that exercise. And I'm, because let's face it, like I'm not perfect, and I still have a lot of those negative thoughts that come into my mind. But if you can start becoming aware and training your brain and putting positive thoughts into your subconscious, you really will start attracting a lot more success in your life, a lot more health in your life, because it's really the law of attraction. You get what you put out there.
When I was reading that chapter in your book, it made me think about how often all of us say, I'm tired, or I'm like, you make that your identity. I'm stressed. No, I feel stressed. I notice I have those feelings of it, but I am Carmen. I am not stressed. When I think rereading that section of your book, I was like, wow, how often do we identify with our thoughts and then let that consume us?
That's a great point. I mean, absolutely. It's another terminology I use is like a mind map. If you can picture you've got this map going on in your mind. It's almost like a computer, right? And if you can put like a big circle, like on a piece of paper, and, for me, like in that big circle, it was like, I think I put in there that, I'm overweight, or I'm 10 pounds too chunky, or whatever I was like saying to myself. And then I put these little arrows out, and I look at it as my mind map, and I put out there, yoga, and then work out, and nutrition, and, I create this whole mind map, and I replace that negative thought with solutions, right? And so I've trained my mind to be more like 90% positive, and maybe that 10% is still there, in the back of my mind. So I attribute that like almost 1,000% to my success. Is having a positive outlook.
Yeah. I mean, and it's gotten you through so many of your experiences, but it's also given you the ability to reflect back on those and be like, okay, well, I've been through this. What am I going to do about it now? Like having that outlook, you're not the victim anymore.
Exactly.
And that's a big thing, especially with our thoughts. Well, you were saying we can easily become a victim to our thoughts. I believe you said something about how you took, wealth for granted and never expressed a lot of gratitude towards that until you had lost some of it. What's the role of gratitude been in your life and been in your success?
When you take it for granted, like I did, and you pointed that out, which is a great, it's a great lesson. It was a really hard lesson for me. I was a self-made millionaire by the time I was 30. And I was fired at 34, and I lost it all within the course of like 14, 15 months. And I realized that I was not grateful for all of the things that I had. And I I was sitting there in the victim stage after I got fired for like almost 3 years. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but it was pathetic. Like I was like sitting in victim stage and woe is me. I've just lost my my car and my big oceanfront condo, and woe is me, stuck in the victim stage, instead of realizing that that was just a redirection for my life. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
What's the best and worst advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received is, if you want to accomplish something, find a role model who's already doing what you really desire to do, which is why I created a program called the American Interns. And I wrote about it in my book Clues, but anybody that reads the book, they've got the opportunity to come to the American Interns website, enter an annual contest, and it's going to give them the opportunity to be exposed to role models, to kind of like shadow with them and be mentored by them. That's why I created that. That was the best advice anybody ever gave me, is to have a role model. The worst advice I ever received was to find a man who's rich and to marry a rich man. I have to be honest with you. Part of the reason I wanted to go in the medical field was because I wanted to go call on doctors, because I wanted to find myself some rich doctor. And in the end, like, I am that rich man. Like, I am so confident in my own abilities to make it on your own, ladies. Like, there is nothing that ever will make you feel stronger and like a badass than making it on your own. So, and I'm self-made twice over. I mean, everybody has the ability to achieve it. I mean, and that's a big part of why I wrote this book, Carmen, was that I really want to give back and empower women that you can do it. You're a badass. You just have to figure out what it is that you love to do.
What would you tell? I'm 23 years old.
Yeah.
What would you tell your 23-year-old self?
Develop more self-confidence. Focus on what it is that you really love to do, and don't worry about the money. Don't let anything stand in your way. If you have a dream of having your own business, what's stopping you? Go for it. Do it now. I was totally wrong that corporate America is the safe way to go. No, if you have a dream of wanting to have your own business, do it. What is stopping you? And chances are it's your self-confidence. So it goes back to that, right? I mean, you need to have a good plan, find a great role model, and go for it. Quit holding yourself back.
For more conversations like these, or to find a support system near you, go to generationsos.org.